Hello people. So last week we've left off with the register page where we managed to make a function that allows user to register. I'm sorry for the delay of this video because for the past few weeks I've been busy with my own project. So in this video we're gonna take a look about some changes we'll make to the register function we currently have. I've recently read an article and it explained that MySQL, which is the current way we are doing to connect with the database and insert the username and password for registration, has been deprecated in the PHP version 5.5.0, starting from that. And basically one of the thing that has been deprecated is MySQL, because it's been found out that MySQL is vulnerable to SQL injection unless you've add some additional check before executing the query to the user's input values. Basically what SQL injection can do is, for example, you have a search function which you expect the user to input a keyword. However, if the user enter a valid MySQL command instead, it can do a lot of damage to your database. Like for example, the attacker can steal your username, view stuff that he isn't allowed to, which is what we don't want. So what we can do is to use alternatives such as MySQLi or PDO MySQL. And what we're gonna use will be the MySQLi to replace the MySQL. So in this, I'm gonna open up the project files now. In the connect.php, we're gonna change MySQL, the connection, into MySQLi instead. Basically, you're gonna create a MySQLi variable which stores a new connection to the database using MySQLi. And what you need is the database host for the first parameter, followed by the username, the password, and then the database name. And in the register page, instead of using the previous way to insert the username and password, we'll be using the prepared statements instead from MySQLi. Basically what you need to do is to replace the two username and password with question marks, which will act as parameters that we can insert after creating the prepared statement. So over here we're going to create the prepared statement using this SQL, and then we're going to bind parameters to the prepared statements. Basically we're going to put the username here and the password here. So what prepared statement does is that it prevents SQL injection. So the bind parent function will allow us to bind parameters to this prepared statement. So the first parameter will be a string. Therefore, the first parameter have a S character, which is a short form for string, and then another S character because there's two string we are inserting into the prepared statement. And then the first one will be the username, which will be put into here, and then the second one will be the password, will be bind to here. So for example, maybe you're gonna insert in the future, maybe you're gonna insert age for the user. So you add an I, which is the data type short form for int, and then for example you have a variable age here, and you will put the age variable into the prepared statement when you have a third question mark. And instead of checking if the result is a success, we're gonna check if the execution of this statement is a success or not. So we'll be removing this MySQL error, and if the statement is successfully executed, we'll just tell the user they have successfully registered, and if they have not, then we'll just tell them they have failed to register. And we're gonna echo the error for the MySQL. And basically what it needs is the connection to the database, which is the MySQL variable, and it will give us output the errors if there's any when inserting to the database. So right now, if we try to register with a valid username and password, it will still work the same. It's just that we are connecting and inserting with MySQL instead of MySQL. It's more safer because it prevents SQL injection. So it's the right way to connect to the database and insert data. And right now we are just storing the username. We are just storing the password as plain text. So I'm going to open up the table here. Right now we're just storing the password as plain text. So if an attacker managed to get our database username and password and then logs into the database, they will be able to steal the password. So a way to prevent them from stealing the password is to use encryption on the passwords. Basically what encryption does is it turns the password into text that is not that has no meaning to a human. Sorry, I need to get the definition. Basically, the encryption is to allow information to be hidden so that it cannot be read without special knowledge. This is from Wikipedia. And to turn an encrypted password back into plain text, the attacker will need the key to turn back the password from encrypted to plain text. My description is not very good, so you can read about it. I will add the link to the definition for the encryption at the description of the video. So basically what we're going to do now is to add a function that is able to turn our plain text passwords into encrypted passwords. The encryption method we're going to use is the blowfish encryption. So we're going to create a function called encrypt, and it's going to accept a password as input, and it's going to perform 9 rounds of encryption. Basically the rounds of encryption you use on a password, the more is better. However, if you increase the rounds, it will take more CPU cycles to complete the operation. So basically it's a security and performance trade-off. Basically it will slow down your application if you add more rounds to the encryption. And what we gonna do first